It's always the shipping accidents that grab the headlines. The fact that the great majority of the world's ocean-going ships are well run by properly trained officers and crew passes unnoticed. It is the minority of rogue ships with suspect operators, unchecked by flag state, that threaten the safety of their crews, other shipping, and the environment. It is to eliminate these substandard ships that port state control has been established. If any single port or nation takes action other than arresting the ship, the suspect vessels will sail to nearby ports or countries, passing through the same waters. Only united international action can be effective. With the backing of the IMO, the ILO, and the European Union, in 1982 in Paris, the first Memorandum of Understanding on Port State Control was signed. This applied to ports in Europe. This initiative, recently reinforced by stringent European legislation, set up a framework for port states to exercise their right to inspect foreign merchant ships in their ports and waters.
Yes. Morning, Captain.
Come in, please.
My name is Verschuren for Port State Control.
Other regions have used the European initiative as an example for similar action. Notably the Asia-Pacific region, where Port State Control was established in 1994 under the Tokyo Memorandum. Similar agreements have been developed in other areas of the world. Regional cooperation on port state control provides a common basis for action in the inspection and, if necessary, the detention of ships in port. The cumulative effect of these agreements is that most ships passing through the coastal waters of these regions are inspected. It is the port state control officers who put the agreements into action. The port state regions all have similar systems. Each officer is fully qualified under the regulations of their own port state. Ships are assigned to them by their central office. Although selection of ships for inspection is, in principle, on a random basis, priority is given to ships of certain types and flags, and ships with a poor inspection record. This targeting assists authorities to allocate resources effectively and to better identify unscrupulous operators and administrations. Where there are clear grounds for believing that a ship does not meet the statutory requirements, a detailed inspection will be held. Clear grounds include a report by another authority or by an organization such as a trade union, or a complaint by the master or another crew member. Before any ship is selected for inspection, a check is made to see if it has been inspected recently. This means accessing the regional database. Details of every inspection in the region are logged here. Rapid access to data means that ships with deficiencies can be followed up, and ships that have passed are not normally inspected again immediately. The databases of the Paris and Tokyo memoranda have recently been linked to allow for inter-regional exchange of information. Personnel are always on the lookout for changes of name, flag state, owner, classification society, and all the subterfuges that unscrupulous owners use to hide their defective ships.
The Solaris.
Having checked on some ships, the supervisor allocates a list of ships to the port state control officer.
Nou moet je met de bulk carrier even uitkijken. Er stonden nog een paar punten over van de vorige inspectie.
How thoroughly he inspects each ship will depend on the situation on board, the history of the ship, and whether the ship belongs to a targeted category that requires special attention. For example, concern about the high loss ratio of older bulk carriers calls for close inspection of the structural integrity of these ships. The ship's documentation will always be checked, and there will be a brief inspection tour to check the condition of the ship, including the accommodation and the engine room. If everything is satisfactory, it's possible that the inspection may go no further. Port State Control inspections only include issues covered by international conventions. These include the IMO conventions on load lines and its protocol, SOLAS and its protocols incorporating the ISM code, MARPOL and its protocol, the STCW Convention, the COLREG Convention, the Tonnage Convention, and the ILO 147 Convention on minimum standards for merchant shipping. Even if the ship's flag state has not ratified these conventions, the ship and crew will be expected to meet the standards laid out in them. As these conventions develop, Port State Inspection will enforce the changes. Recent amendments add considerably to the role of Port State Inspection. Keeping a ship up to these standards is first of all the responsibility of the owner. It should be part of the ship's routine.
Inspection in a few days. Can I see the oil record book, please?
Yes. This is the...
These issues need to be raised in management meetings and followed up. Remember, once a ship gets a bad name, it can stick, and the ship gets inspected more often. By being vigilant, officers can make it easier for themselves and their ship. Never leave the preparatory work to the last minute. Port State inspections are not just about certificates and hardware. The competence of the crew can also be checked. Other items to be examined include operational procedures and safety and firefighting drills. It's vital to keep good records of all drills ready for an inspection. Proper training is also important. Port State Control officers have the right to go on board any ship in port at any time.
Well, I just want to see the chief.
They will first see the master. The inspection always starts with a thorough check of the ship's documents.
Can I see the ship certificates? If possible, I could start with the safety equipment, please. Safety equipment certificate. Ship is a Revo. Can I see the crew list, please?
Crew list?
Yeah. When the vessel arrived at Rotterdam.
Close scrutiny of the documents reveals a great deal about a ship and the way it is operated. Are all the documents valid? When was the last flag state inspection?
Oh, good morning, Captain. My name is Norman. I come from Marine Department, Port State Control Inspections. Yeah, he's my... Documentations comes in terms of certificate and maintenance record. These are the critical certification or documents that we should expect to find on board the vessel. And these are the proof that all the international legislation in related to maritime safety and pollution have been complied with. It is to the ship staff's benefit that all these documentation are in a well prepared and ready manner, so that it won't give the wrong impression to the Port State Control that the vessel is not ready.
Having the documents correct and ready for an inspection will get things off to a good start. The ship's certificates, the oil record book, classification documents and test certificates of equipment will always be examined.
So, Captain, may I see your stability information booklet?
The crew list will always be checked against the minimum safe manning document and the certificates of competency of the officers and crew.
Okay, your minimum safe manning?
Landing.
Thank you. Thank you.
I always look at the oil record book to see whether the ship complied with the MARPOL and whether the ship used the equipment that it has on board according to its IOPP certificate. one of my first questions always is, what's the fuel consumption? And I work out how much sludge I assume he has on board. Have they used their oil water separator? Yes or not? Then secondly, I'll look what happens to the sludge. Do they burn it? If they burn it, is it mentioned on the International Oil Pollution Prevention Certificate that they have an incinerator on board? What is the capacity of that incinerator?
The officer will want to see evidence that the ship is always kept up to a good operational standard and has not just been brought up to the minimum requirements recently.
Record keeping is critical. It helps to tell the port state control officers that all those operation requirements, maintenance requirements have been done according to the requirement of SOLAS, MARPOL, and all the rest. There are no set of prescribed form where the actual record should be kept. Sometimes it can be saved on a computer. Sometimes it can be kept in a file.
The inspection will always be in the presence of a ship's officer, so that the ship is fully aware of any deficiencies and what needs to be done to rectify them.
I see. Do you have a deviation logbook? Yeah. What a deviation control. I see. What I mean is this, table of life-saving signals. Have you displayed them here somewhere on the bridge?
It's always better to be straightforward and honest.
I don't see.
Port State Control officers see a lot of ships and have seen most kinds of deception and trickery. If you don't tell the truth and the surveyor uncovers what you're trying to hide, he will be suspicious of everything on board.
These signals means danger for the aircraft.
The surveyor has the power to delay or detain the ship in port. This may jeopardize the charter and affect the livelihood of everyone on board. Delay or detention is normally enforced until the shortcomings have been put right. Before any detention is lifted, a second inspection will be required to verify that all the deficiencies have been made good. The power of detention is frequently used, more than 6 times a day throughout the ports covered by the Paris and Tokyo memoranda. Deficiencies are most commonly found in life-saving appliances, firefighting equipment, safety in general, and navigational equipment. Common but less frequent deficiencies are MARPOL, ship certificates, manning, and overloading. These areas are all well worth checking if an inspection is due. Lack of proper maintenance is the main cause for the deficiencies. Ship's personnel need to pay attention to detail in all routine maintenance to have the best chance of passing an inspection.
Excuse me, he's the Port State Inspector, come from Made Hong Kong.
Oh, my name is Norman, yes, Port State Control Inspections. So are you the officer who's in charge of all the chart work?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. Okay. So can you tell me what are the company's procedure for chart correction? I mean, do you correct every chart you're going to use only?
Failure to keep the charts up to date is a common deficiency. There should be evidence of a proper system for chart correction, including adequate checking. There is no set sequence of items that the port state officer has to investigate. It's left to his judgment within the frame of reference defined by the international conventions and the regional port state agreement.
So Captain, where do you put your table of the life-saving signals?
Yeah, over there.
Over there. Please.
Is the signal table?
Okay, is that the table you're referring to? It appears to me that they're not that complete. Anyway, I'll make a note of that. So these are the cabinet for the pyrotechnics?
Yeah.
First impressions do count. If the accommodation alleys are clean and tidy, if there are signs of careful maintenance, this does give the right impression.
Result enter into the logbook?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So what happens when there's some complaints from the crew regarding the food and welfare?
Normally I can.
But the main effort needs to be in ensuring that the ship fulfills the international conventions and its flag state requirements.
Okay. So is that the medical locker?
Yeah.
May I have a look?
Yeah, please.
The inspector has the right to look at any part of the ship where there's equipment that relates to the conventions. The oily water separation equipment is often the subject of scrutiny.
If we come across a small deficiency, we remind the crew, and mostly it's rectified while you're there. If we come across ships that are substandard, then we will prevent those ships to go to sea until they've rectified all the deficiencies. Listen, Captain. This broke?
Yeah, it was replaced, you know.
Yeah.
Port State Control includes ILO Convention 147, which concerns crew living and working conditions, as well as the social rights of seafarers.
Thank you very much. And that's your...
Okay, Captain, do you keep a inventory list
Yeah, I show you.
of the medicine?
Safety and working and living conditions are often closely linked.
So is all the medicine updated?
Yeah, update.
Okay.
Unscrupulous owners who are saving money by cutting back on safety equipment are also likely to cut back on crew living standards, wages, and employment rights.
Just having a look around in your...
Yes, sir. Underwater fire blanket.
A large part of port control is directed towards the safety of the vessel, marine pollution prevention of the vessel, welfare and well-being of seafarers. So actually it's for the benefit of sea staff. Port State Control officers are in a helping role. We are not enemies. So Captain, how long you carry out the inspection of the galley?
Yeah, every week.
Every week. You have the record for that?
Yeah.
Is in the
In the
logbook?
take logbook.
Yeah, okay.
All inspectors have their own areas of expertise and special interest. However, each inspection will bring up new issues upon which they have to make immediate decisions.
Is the fire hose ready?
Yeah, fire hose ready.
Okay.
Can I start fire pump?
Yes, please.
Under the IMO conventions, the safety aspects of any operational procedure may be examined.
So may I know your rank, please?
My rank is bosun, sir.
Your rank is bosun.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me your duties in the fire drill or emergency?
My duty in emergency and fire drill, I am the member of the emergency squad,
Yes.
and my duty is to attend fire hose,
Yes.
wear fireman outfit, and attend also the fire extinguisher, sir.
Thank you.
In order to maintain a common standard of inspection and to agree upon broad issues,
Just on one item.
the nations involved hold regular seminars.
Emergency fire pump, it could be a CO2 installation.
Port State Control officers from the participating nations meet to discuss the issues that will lead to more harmonized inspection procedures.
And you are the experts. So we feel that you should deliver the material for the working group on harmonization. Now, of course, we have harmonized a lot already.
Those vessels without the qualification, how are we going to do it?
What about the vessels that have got the ISM in process of being fully implemented? Do we
These
still
seminars provide an important focus for discussion and for the development of a unified approach.
I think the first thing we should go according to the principles which we follow for the other port state control items like certification.
The ISM code is a continuing area of discussion. As it comes into force, improving the safety consciousness of both ship and shore management, port state inspection will play an important role in verifying compliance.
And the operational effectiveness.
Port State Control operates because governments want it to.
Perhaps could be one of
each port state control region is established by the will and with the full power of its member states. The port state control committees scrutinize progress in their regions and ensure that it's working effectively. It may be true that a good owner will maintain a good ship under any flag, but there are great differences in the percentages of ships detained in terms of their flag state. Certain registries don't seem to come up to standard and are being targeted.
We'll come there when we get to the engine room.
Port state control detention reports are submitted to the IMO to confront flag states with poor performance. The details of notorious re-offenders are published, including the names of their operators or owners.
Just avoid space. Do this sort of repair, it wouldn't do any good.
There are still too many substandard ships on the sea, a fact that port state control officers can bear witness to.
Just a picture of a lot of rust.
For example, the corrosion inside the hull of this bulk carrier is such that much of the structural steelwork has rusted away. This lifeboat, which has serious structural damage. A fire hose that could never put out a fire. A water main with valves rusted closed. No well-run ship or conscientious seafarer has anything to fear from port state control. The standards set are those of the generally accepted international conventions.
Steering gear, cradle washing.
Where safety management systems are in place, the ship should be ready for inspection at any time. But even on the best ships, some preparation should be made if an inspection is thought to be imminent. The master and chief engineer should make a tour of inspection. This will ensure that the ship is as ready as it can be and that minor defects are corrected.
Okay, thank you, Captain.
There are no secrets to passing port state control. It just takes management effort to ensure that the ship is kept up to standard. The success of the Port State Control Initiative in Europe and Asia has led to similar developments throughout the world.
Inspection, I noticed a couple of deficiencies. Item 1, stability booklet. The stability booklet you showed me just now, I can't find any stamps, approval stamps by the class. So please arrange with your owner to get it done, okay? And then for the navigation charts, I noticed that most of the navigation chart has been updated, but occasionally there are one or two corrections have not been updated. Okay, I think that's important. Please get it done. Pyrotechnics. When I do my inspection on the bridge, I find that some of the pyrotechnic has been expired. Please arrange with the owners to have the new pyrotechnics be sent on board, or you check with your store to have it. And then the second...
Port State Control makes for safer seas. Many thousands of ships have been detained and forced to rectify deficiencies in the ship's structure, safety equipment, firefighting appliances, navigational equipment, crewing, and other areas. The maintenance of proper standards is primarily the responsibility of the ship owner and the flag state, who should ensure that the seafarer keeps to them. Port State Control does not pretend to be more than a secondary safety net, in case the regime of the ship owner and flag state fails. It is up to everyone involved in the maritime world, whether ashore or afloat, to help eliminate the few unscrupulous ship owners who, by running unsafe ships, are jeopardizing the lives of their crews and the livelihoods of all those who work in or live near coastal waters. Only by acting in concert can international standards be improved. Mutual cooperation between the port state control regions is growing. Recent developments in the international conventions are giving a greater role to port state control. Ship's crew and ship's owners cannot afford to ignore port state control, tightening the net to catch and eliminate substandard shipping.